The studio lights burned bright on the Late Show set, casting a crisp glow over Stephen Colbert as he leaned into his desk, his smile warm, but his eyes glinting with a quiet edge. Across from him sat Elon Musk, the tech titan whose presence alone shifted the room's gravity, his posture relaxed yet coiled, like a man accustomed to commanding attention. The audience, a lively blend of fans and curious onlookers, hummed with anticipation, sensing the potential for sparks between the quick-witted host and the billionaire visionary. What began as a standard interview quickly flared into a confrontation, raw and unscripted, that would end with Musk storming off stage, leaving Colbert to claim the night. Colbert opened with his usual charm, easing into questions about Musk's latest venture, a neural tech project promising to merge human minds with machines. His tone was light, playful even, but the jabs carried weight, probing the ethics of tinkering with consciousness. Musk responded with confidence, his voice smooth as he touted the innovation as a leap for humanity, a fix for a world too slow to evolve. Colbert's grin tightened, his questions sharpening. Was this a breakthrough or a billionaire's reckless gamble? Who decided where the line was drawn, and what happened when it blurred? The mood shifted as Colbert dug deeper, pivoting to Musk's history of bold claims that didn't always land. He brought up stalled projects, public skepticism, the whispers of overreach that trailed the mogul's empire. Musk's jaw tightened, his answers growing clipped, insisting the critics missed the vision that progress demanded risk. Colbert didn't back off, his humor turning pointed, questioning the cost of that risk, the lives caught in the gears of Musk's relentless drive. Did he not see the fallout, or was he too far above it to care? The audience stirred, some chuckling, nervously, others leaning in, the tension thickening like smoke. By the first break, the stage simmered with unease. Musk's polish had worn thin, his fingers tapping restlessly, his gaze darting as if plotting an escape. Colbert, meanwhile, held steady, his wit now a blade, slicing through the billionaire's defenses with every quip. What had started as a chat about tech had cracked open a fault line, Musk's idealism clashing with Colbert's skepticism, each jab a spark in a growing fire. The crowd felt it. This wasn't just banter, it was a reckoning. Could Musk weather the heat, or would Colbert push him past the edge? As the lights dimmed, the answer hung heavy, the clash poised to erupt. The commercial break faded, and the Late Show studio roared back to life, the air thick with a tension that hadn't dissipated but grown, a living thing pulsing through the space. Stephen Colbert returned to his desk, his posture still casual, but his eyes now carried a glint of steel, a man who'd tasted the edge of battle and liked it. Elon Musk sat across from him, his earlier ease replaced by a rigid stillness, his hands clasped tight, his face a mask of barely contained irritation. The audience, sensing the shift, hushed into a taut silence, their anticipation a palpable weight, their murmurs swallowed by the gravity of what was unfolding. What had been a simmering exchange before the break now erupted into a full-blown confrontation, a clash of wills that would push Musk to his breaking point and send him storming off stage, leaving Colbert to reign over the wreckage. Colbert didn't hesitate, diving back in with a question that landed like a sledgehammer, his voice steady but laced with a biting curiosity. He asked Musk how he squared his grand promises with the mounting lawsuits dogging his companies, tales of overworked staff and broken trust. He painted a vivid picture, drawing from whispers of chaos at Neuralink, where deadlines crushed morale, and Tesla, where safety complaints piled up like debris. Musk bristled, his tone sharpening as he fired back, arguing that genius demanded sacrifice, that the complainers were short-sighted, blind to the future he was forging. Colbert's eyebrows arched, his retort swift, questioning if that future justified the present's toll, if Musk's vision was worth the human cost it exacted. The exchange escalated, each word a spark in a growing blaze as Colbert pressed harder, his humor morphing into a weapon. He brought up Musk's wealth, a fortune so vast it seemed to mock the struggles of those he claimed to save, his delivery dripping with a mix of incredulity and scorn. Musk's eyes narrowed, his voice rising, insisting that Colbert couldn't grasp the stakes, that armchair critics like him thrived on tearing down what they couldn't build. The audience gasped, some leaning forward, others shifting uncomfortably, as Musk's words turned personal, his frustration boiling over into a jab at Colbert's own platform, calling it a soapbox for smug nobodies. Colbert didn't flinch, his grin widening, his comeback a surgical strike. He suggested Musk's empire rested on hype, not substance, a house of cards waiting for a breeze. The breaking point arrived in a thunderclap, the tension snapping like a taut wire as Colbert, voice climbing, accused Musk of playing God with no accountability, of treating people like lab rats in his experiments. Musk surged to his feet, his chair scraping back with a screech that echoed through the studio, his composure shattering into a furious glare. He tore off his mic, the cord dangling like a severed lifeline, and unleashed a torrent of anger, his voice booming as he branded Colbert a hypocrite, a clown who mocked what he couldn't comprehend. The crowd froze, their breaths held, as Musk's tirade spiraled, his words a chaotic mix of defiance and desperation, accusing the host of twisting truth for laughs. Colbert rose too, his stance firm, shouting back that Musk couldn't handle, the mirror being held up, that running didn't erase the questions. Musk didn't pause, didn't look back, his footsteps pounding as he stormed toward the wings, disappearing into the shadows as the audience erupted. A cacophony of cheers, boos, and stunned murmurs filling the void he left behind. The echoes of Elon Musk's dramatic exit still reverberated through the Late Show studio as the lights flickered back on, the audience caught in a whirlwind of shock, excitement, and disbelief, their collective energy a live current surging through the space. Stephen Colbert stood behind his desk, his chest rising and falling with the adrenaline of the moment, his face a blend of defiance and exhilaration. A man who just faced a tempest and emerged not just unscathed but invigorated. The crew darted in the shadows, headsets buzzing with frantic chatter, their movements a blur against the stillness of the crowd, who sat riveted, some on the edge of their seats, others whispering to neighbors, all processing the raw spectacle they'd just witnessed. Musk's departure hadn't just ended the interview, it had handed Colbert a stage to transform chaos into triumph, and he seized it with a mastery that would define the night. Backstage, the fallout was immediate and chaotic, a storm of its own brewing as staffers scrambled to keep up with the unraveling scene. Word spread like wildfire. Musk hadn't just stormed off the set, he'd barreled through the halls, his security team in tow, shoving past startled interns and barking orders as he made for the exit. His mic, discarded in a tangle on the floor, lay like a fallen standard, a symbol of his retreat, while outside, paparazzi swarmed the building, their cameras flashing as Musk's car screeched away into the night. Whispers from the green room painted a picture of a man on edge even before the taping, pacing restlessly, muttering about biased hosts and rigged questions, his temper a powder keg waiting for a spark. Colbert's relentless probing had been that spark, and the explosion had left Musk exposed, his exit less a strategic withdrawal and more a desperate flight from a battle he couldn't win. On stage, Colbert didn't miss a beat, his instincts kicking in as he turned to the audience, his voice cutting through the din with a clarity that silenced the room. He didn't gloat, didn't crow over Musk's retreat, instead launching into a monologue that wove the night's chaos into a tapestry of insight and humor, his delivery a blend of righteous fire and sharp wit. He recounted the clash with a storyteller's flair, replaying Musk's outburst in vivid strokes, the billionaire's slamming fist, the wild-eyed accusations, the mic hitting the floor with a thud that still echoed in their ears. The crowd leaned in, their earlier shock giving way to rapt attention, as Colbert framed Musk as a man so tethered to his own myth that he couldn't face scrutiny, a titan undone by his own weight. He lingered on the details, the sweat beading on Musk's brow, the tremble in his voice as he'd railed against the host, each image a brush stroke in a portrait of unraveling pride. The segment unfolded like a slow burn, Colbert's words building, a narrative that turned Musk's meltdown into a mirror for bigger truths, his humor a scalpel that cut deeper with every line. He mocked the absurdity of Musk's exit, likening it to a toddler stomping off after losing a game, then pivoted to the stakes beneath the spectacle, the unchecked ambition that left wreckage in its wake. The audience responded in waves, gasps turning to laughter, then cheers, their connection to Colbert palpable, a shared thrill in watching him dismantle a giant without breaking a sweat. He didn't rush, didn't fill the air with cheap shots, instead letting the moment breathe, his pauses as powerful as his punches, drawing the crowd into a rhythm that felt almost hypnotic. By the next break, the studio was his, the night reshaped from a near disaster into a showcase of his command. Musk's absence a footnote to Colbert's victory, a triumph forged not in spite, but in the quiet strength of standing firm. The final break dissolved, and the Late Show studio pulsed with a renewed vigor, the air alive with a current that seemed to hum through the walls, the audience a sea of faces still buzzing from the night's upheaval. Stephen Colbert settled, back behind his desk, his posture easy yet radiating a quiet authority, his eyes bright with the gleam of a man who'd turned a tempest into his own triumph. Elon Musk's stormy exit lingered like a ghost in the room, but the crowd's focus was locked on Colbert, their energy a tangible force, their earlier shock now a unified swell of anticipation, eager to see how he'd close a night that had veered from routine to unforgettable. With the stage his alone, Colbert didn't just end the show, he crowned it, weaving the chaos into a victory that left no room for doubt. He didn't dwell on Musk's absence, didn't lean on the easy bait of a vanquished foe. Instead, he steered the night forward with a deliberate grace, his voice warm but edged with the steel that had carried him through the clash. He spoke of resilience, of the need to question those who wielded power like a toy, his words landing with a weight that resonated beyond the studio, a reflection on the fragility of unchecked egos. The audience leaned in, their laughter softer now, thoughtful, as Colbert painted the night's events into a broader canvas, his humor subtle yet piercing, a nod to the absurdity of a billionaire unraveling under a spotlight he'd sought. He didn't name Musk, didn't need to. The story was clear in the silence he'd left behind. Offstage, the world was already ablaze with the fallout, a digital storm that dwarfed the studio's walls. Clips of Musk's outburst raced across screens, his slamming fist and furious exit dissected by viewers, pundits, and late-night rivals alike, the internet a battleground of memes and hot takes. His team scrambled, their statements a weak attempt to spin the narrative, but the tide had turned, Colbert's initial salvo now the spark of a rout they couldn't contain. Back in the studio, the host eased into the final act, bringing out a musical guest whose mellow chords softened the air, a gentle counterpoint to the earlier fire. The crowd swayed, their applause a warm thread weaving through the notes, the night's tension melting into a shared exhale, a moment of calm after the storm. As the clock wound down, Colbert took his last stand, alone under the lights, his presence filling the space with an effortless command. He didn't revisit the clash, didn't milk the drama. His win was in the show itself, a seamless arc from confrontation to closure that needed no encore. He thanked the audience, his tone genuine, his gaze sweeping the room with a promise of more nights where truth and wit collided. The response was thunderous, a standing ovation that shook the rafters, a roar of approval for a host who'd faced a titan and walked away taller. The cameras panned wide, capturing the crowd, some still buzzing with adrenaline, others beaming with pride, all bound by a story that felt complete, a victory sealed in their cheers. Outside, the chaos churned on, Musk likely regrouping, his camp plotting a counterstrike, their silence a temporary lull. But here, in this moment, the night belonged to Colbert, a triumph forged not in vengeance, but in the steady hand that had guided it home. The show closed with no loose ends, no lingering questions, just a satisfaction that settled over the room like a well-earned rest. They'd watched a spark ignite, a giant falter, and a host rise, all in one bruising, brilliant hour. Colbert waved, the applause washing over him, and the screen faded to black. A perfect end to a night that stood alone, its echo destined to linger long after the lights dimmed.